Hi everyone, my name is Rin Oliver, and welcome to a very special episode of the DroidDevCast. We're here to chat about National Coming Out Day, and I'm super excited to be here with some of my wonderful friends. And I know we just did an intro, but we're going to do the official podcast intro now. So, for those that don't know me, I am the content marketing manager here at Esper. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm an autistic, non-binary, Jewish lesbian. And I'm going to let everybody go around and give their official intro that is not for the group and for the podcast.
I can kick us off. My name's Liz. I am a queer trans woman. I work for Buzzfeed, and I've previously worked at Heroku and Heptio. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm happy to be here.
I'll go next. My name is Joe Engel. My pronouns are he, him. I am an SRE manager at Zillow. I am a cisgender gay man. Before Zillow, I've worked at places like Blue Origin, AWS, and Rackspace.
I can go next. Hi, my name is Kris Nova. I am a trans woman. I'm queer. I work in tech. Previously, Microsoft, VMware, Heptio, Deas, SolidFire, NetApp. Now I'm at Sysdig. Who knows where I'll go next? Pronouns are she, her. Happy to be here.
All right, I guess I'm going next. This is Oscar Leon with Esper. Pronouns are he, him. I'm a cisgendered gay man. I have been with HPE, Cisco, and a couple other startups. I'm on the enterprise sales team here at Esper currently.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, everybody. All right, let's get right into this. And to start us off, I'm just going to go for the most generic question here. What does National Coming Out Day mean to you?
To me, National Coming Out Day is mostly about being visible. I'm sure there are some people who actually use it as an opportunity to come out, but to me, especially as a person who is relatively out, mostly I see it as an opportunity to make coming out be a thing that feels real, as opposed to just some abstract concept. I like being able to show what it might be like after you came out, after all of the difficult conversations are, all of those initial conversations are over. You don't have to constantly think about it and just sort of whatever ordinary means these days, what that could mean for you.
Yeah, I'd give a big +1 to it's all about the visibility and celebration. To me, National Coming Out Day actually marks the day I chose to come out at a relatively young age. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about our coming out experiences as this goes on. But I think it's been historically just a celebratory day to see the people around me, especially in the queer community, just celebrating who they are and really relishing that diversity.
For me, it's about taking the power back. Right? It's a day to kind of say that there is life after coming out, and not only is there life, but it can be a good one, and it can be successful and happy. And it's just a day to stop and pause and remember that there was a point in my life where every morning I woke up and I wasn't myself, and then I came out, and then it changed my life, and really that was the first day of my new life, and it's just kind of it's like a holiday where I kind of sit and reflect every year and just think about what it was like before, what it was like the day of, and what it's like now that I've made it through. And I think sharing the success and the happiness at the end is really, really pleasant for me every year.
Yeah, just to echo on what everyone else has said, for me, it's definitely a lot of reflection, right? I personally have gone through a lot of transformation on a personal level and a professional level, and in life in general, ever since I was unfortunately outed. That's kind of my weird situation I was put in. But definitely for me, it's a time to reflect on what life was like for me before that experience, and just the fact that I can, be me and be able to come to work and be me and be around everyone else and be my true self. That's definitely what it's all about for me.
Yeah, I actually agree completely. I use Coming Out Day to go through more than a few gender transitions because, in my opinion, gender, So that's just me. But I've gone through about 3 of them now, I think, maybe 4, I don't know. And I originally came out, when I was like 12, and I'm 35 now, so that's been a while. But gender is ongoing, so I've taken National Coming Out Day to not only update my gender a couple times, but also to reflect on that whole thing. So I really try to use it as a reflective thing also. And actually, for the next one, yeah, I guess we're going to go for the story time. Would anybody like to tell their story in terms of how you came out, your journey in general?
I guess I can go, if that's okay. This is Oscar on the Esper side. Like I mentioned in the previous kind of section, I was unfortunately outed by a family member. And so to my family, that was kind of, I would say, a shock, especially because, my mom's side is 11 brothers and sisters. About 7 or 8 of them are male, and they're all pastors, so we were very religious. And it's kind of led me down an interesting path with my relationship with my family. I was fortunate enough to be able to, share that coming out experience with my friend group. So, at first it was kind of a shock to see how my family reacted, and as a result, I'm not super close with the majority of my extended family, but thankfully, and I'm very thankful for this, my immediate family, my mom, my dad, my brother, sister, have been incredibly supportive and just very. They've adjusted to life, and I am very fortunate enough to have had a very supportive friend group as well around me at the time. And at work, I've been fortunate to feel accepted around my teams. And if anyone knows what it's like to kind of work in a sales team in tech, it's very broy, unfortunately. But I can't tell you that I've felt uncomfortable in any of those situations. And I think it kind of lends itself to a lot of the people that I've surrounded myself with. They're good people, and some of the companies that I've been at have been very very supportive as well, and very kind of involved. Cisco is to be one of the ones of note. They have a very large community of queer folk in Cisco world, and I definitely felt at home there, and also at my other place of employment as well.
I can go next. This is Joe again, and Rin. I just want to comment that, especially as a cisgender person, I'm super interested to hear from maybe you as well, like the transgender experience and the gender experiences on National Coming Out Day are just completely different than anything I can imagine using Coming Out Day for. So I'm really excited to potentially hear from you on that if you're comfortable sharing. But for me, my coming out story when I was about middle school, I definitely knew something was amok. I knew something wasn't quote unquote right with me. I grew up in South Texas, in San Antonio to be exact, and so there is a lot of religious upbringing there. There is a lot of Catholicism is very big there, and so back in the 90s, it wasn't really seen as a great thing, and so it was a lot of confusion for me. But slowly coming to terms with it and understanding who I was an awesome journey that honestly I never want to take for granted, because it taught me a lot more about who I am than just that I'm a gay man. It taught me about my interests and the things that I like. But I actually chose National Coming Out Day. I believe I was 14. I chose National Coming Out Day as a day to come out to my parents, and it was rough. My parents are amazing. Let me just preface with that. We have an outstanding relationship now, but at the time there was a lot of tumultuation in my family. My brother has a pretty systemic bad drug problem, and there's some other family things going on. And for my parents, it was just, one other thing. Like, sure, why not get another kid with another problem or something like that? And it wasn't the best experience right away, but props to my mother. The next day, she actually picked me up from school, took me to Starbucks, and had a conversation with me. And I think that really bridged a really cool gap. And then over time, my father definitely got a lot better about it. And I actually remember on my 21st birthday, him like really apologizing for the periods between that where maybe he didn't accept me as much. And now today, I'm engaged to my fiance, and I love him to bits. And my family treats him as part of our family, even though we're not even married yet. So it's definitely come a long way. And I like what somebody said earlier, where like there's a future past coming out, and it's been an awesome journey getting there.
I look at coming out like I can tell the story, and it was really cute and adorable, and it's not at all what I was like expecting. And it's a good story to tell, but more importantly to me is what I learned about coming out. And I think that I've actually come out more than once. And the closest thing I can think to describe this is my answer when people ask me what it was like to be born as a twin. And it's like, oh, I don't know. That's just the only way I've ever known it. So it's completely normal to me. Like I was just born as a trans person, and then that's like just kind of how everything was. So to me, this is just like the baseline, right? Like it took me till I was 27 to actually mutter the phrase "I'm transgender," and now like I can't shut up about it. And then it was like, maybe a year later, I was like, oh yeah, by the way, also I'm gay. And everybody was like, yeah, we know. And then that was kind of when I had like the second coming out, which for me was first I had to realize that like there's a huge difference between identity and attraction. Like who you go to bed with versus who you go to bed as is like two completely different things. And then it was like, okay, now I have to like rationalize like I'm gay as well as I'm trans. And then it was like, but am I even gay? Like what? And then I just finally just kind of like threw my hands in the air and just gave up and was like, I'm just queer, whatever you need to tell yourself to compartmentalize me, go for it. But like, I'm not what I would consider like straight heteronormative by any means. And so, that was the lesson that sticks with me, and I apply that all over the place, both to like my personal relationships with people, with the folks I consider my family today, even at work, right? Like it's learning to accept yourself and say yes to the situation, even if you don't have the words for it or don't understand it, and even being able to recognize like, hey, there's something wrong with the situation. Like I feel like that's a part of coming out that nobody talks about, is like that moment where you're like, oh shit, there is something wrong. Like that takes time and effort. Like that isn't just like, you don't wake up one morning and somebody hands you like a letter and says, hey, you're gay, welcome to the party. You get, here's like your commemorative, CD and your package, and enjoy everything.
Your Ani DeFranco CD and your flannel.
Exactly. Or like even like being an adult, right? Like, congratulations, you're now an adult. Here is your 1040 EZ, your 401k, keys to your new Honda Odyssey, and like a cooler to take the kids to soccer practice. Like that doesn't really happen. You just kind of like realize it, and it's a slow process. And getting good at that, that's coming out, right? Like getting good at saying, oh shit, something's wrong. Or I'm different, or this doesn't, what I was told is right or normal or correct isn't what's actually happening, and being able to recognize that. And yeah, that happens to me like all the time. And I get pumped when that happens, because like that means I'm learning, and that means I'm growing, and that means I'm making the world better. So to me, that's coming out. It's learning to detect when something's wrong.
Yeah, just to add to that a little bit, I came out, I don't know, over the course of like, initially 2 years, 3 years while I was late high school, early university. But the verb coming out is kind of interesting when you're trans, because it's actually two very, very different processes. There was the first one where the ostensible male that all of my friends knew, although I think a lot of them suspected, went away, and the person that you now hear in front of you came out. But I don't have to do that anymore. That happened. That was sort of a singular event. And the coming out that I do now is where I remind people that I am not, in fact, actually cis. I'm not, in fact, actually straight. And I think it's kind of interesting that those share the same verb, because they're actually, from my perspective, they're like a completely different process. Because the difference between somebody who like I had friends from the before times who just like couldn't get my pronouns right, couldn't get my name right. And I just stopped talking to them. I don't have time for that. It was very stressful. It was very unpleasant. But that's not sort of the kind of concern I have when I come out to people now. When I come out to people now, I'm just like, I am recontextualizing what you already know about me rather than introducing you to something entirely new. And it's sort of scary in a different way, right? Like letting somebody know that I'm not cis is, I think, not quite as terrifying as it was for that, that awkward teenager letting people know that they weren't cis. But I think they're both very important processes. I've always thought it was kind of funny that they had the same word. And like, if you ask a trans person, "Are you out?" it could mean two completely different things.
I have a question if other people have the same experience with me about coming out. But when I was coming out, I learned just through like the because everybody needs like a moment. Like you got to kind of go have one-on-ones with everyone and let them do their thing. And sometimes it's like, oh, hey, I'm queer, I'm trans. And they're like, okay, pass the ketchup. And other times it's like, all right, 10 years later, we're still talking about it. I'm wondering if anybody else noticed that you just never knew what you were going to get and that you were often wrong with how you thought people were going to react to it.
Oh, yeah. I can definitely relate with that a lot. So part of my background is I was in the military. I was in the Marine Corps and the officers program for 4 years. And so a lot of the struggle that I had when coming out to my friends was, these are very aggressive alpha male type, if you will, Marines. And the funniest thing about that is very much expectation subversion, is coming out to them and telling them, hey, guys, I'm gay, was nowhere near as, I would say, traumatic as I thought it was going to be. You expect, I don't know, some sort of reaction there. And it was totally like, oh, that's cool, man. So where do you want to go for dinner or something like that? It was a very interesting experience for me to do that. And then, with my family, I guess I kind of expected a big whole blowout, which I halfway did with some of my extended family because of the religious aspect of it. But, my immediate family was a lot more quiet about it. So I definitely am with you right there. You never know what to expect. Sometimes you get those, hey, okay, cool, pass the ketchup moments, or sometimes you get a deeper conversation about it and just identity overall in the long run.
I definitely had a couple experiences. Most of the time people were just sort of like, yeah, we knew. We knew that already. Some people came up to me and they were just like, wow, I've actually got a whole bunch of questions about this that I want to ask. And the thing that you're supposed to do is be very patient and answer all those questions. But in a lot of circumstances, the thing that I actually did was tell them that Google existed and that I had more interesting things to do with my life than answer all of their questions. And that was liberating in its own way. That like, once I come out to you, my part of the process is done. Like, it is not my responsibility to hold your hand through this. And some people who like really wanted that out of me surprised me. Like some people, it was really difficult for them. And, the classic thing of like, have you ever thought about how this coming out is going to affect me? It was so funny who I got which response from. And it was also very gratifying to realize that I don't owe these people something because I'm trans or because I'm queer. Perhaps I want to keep them as a friend and I'm willing to put in the effort to do that, but that's not specifically a queer thing. That's the sort of decision you make with your friends all the time. And sort of de-transactionalizing that relationship, I thought was really interesting. But it did feel like, I don't know, it sort of felt like I was playing a role-playing game sometimes, and just like, I rolled a critical failure on my coming out, and a person like just took it completely horribly to Nova's point.
I cannot echo the me versus you sentiment enough. Like, I would be like, okay, and I'm trans and I'm queer. And I'd be like, okay, and stand by, and we're going to wait and see what side of the, like, are you going to go Jedi or are you going to go Alliance here? And it was either, oh my God, how does this impact me? Or it was completely, oh my gosh, what has this been like for you? And I'm not going to lie, the how does this impact me people did not stay in my life for very long. Most of those people are gone. And honestly, I was like, whoever was talking a moment ago, I had the same thing. I was an electrician. Like, I used to pull cable, and I was like, drove a truck, had guns. I was like Mr. Macho. And I was like, by the way, I'm a trans woman. And like, it took me, I think 6 months to finally come out to like the most alpha male, really, really good friend that I had. And his response was literally, pass the ketchup, also P.S. I'm gay. I haven't told anyone yet, but like, I figured you should know now that you shared this with me. And I was just taken aback how many people would share. It was like one person being vulnerable kicked off this whole like train of vulnerability. But yeah, I think that's what I loved most about coming out, was just learning about myself and about people and how people deal with this kind of stuff.
That is very cool. Thank you so much, everybody, for the awesome sharing. For me, my story, like I said, pretty generic. I did a few gender updates over the years, but for the most part, my family's been great. My wife's been great. I'm really lucky in that sense. My wife's just like, you're changing your gender again. Okay. That's fun. My mom gets the name fine. And other family members, we don't have enough podcast time for that. So we're going to skip that. And we're going to go to the next question. For me, though, what I found was the most interesting was being autistic and being non-binary. People have a harder time with the autism than they do with the gender. And that's been interesting. And I don't think that it's just such a facet of who I am, being non-binary and being autistic, that it's like it always baffles me when people struggle more with accepting the fact that I'm autistic more than the fact that I'm non-binary, which is an interesting thing to have happened. So next on my question docket is, what does it mean to you all to work at a company where you can bring your whole self to work? What's that like for you? Do you work at a company where you can do that? I would love to hear more about it.
I have worked at a lot of companies who have said that verbatim. I've never worked at a company that actually did it.
Yeah, I don't even think people want to bring their whole selves to work. I think when people say, can you bring your whole self to work, what they actually want is you are allowed to have a rainbow flag in your profile picture and you can talk about your wife. They don't want...
That is true.
They don't want, like, I am a anarchist and I don't think that we should be doing deals with these foreign governments. They don't want... Even just like for the cis people, like when you ask how things are going, most of the time they want you to say, I'm fine, even if you're not, because you just like, you aren't going to put on the like same persona with everybody else. Like there are aspects of my lived experience that are wholly inappropriate for any work environment that that is just like, it's not appropriate to talk about. And so when I see the like bring your whole self to work thing, it does sort of feel like what they actually want is like, you can talk about being queer, you can talk about being trans or whatever, but like, should the like conservative Christian who hates me bring their whole self to work? Should, the person who doesn't believe that trans rights are human rights bring their whole self to work? I don't think they should be at work at all, but I don't get to control that. So.
Following up, first of all, Liz, I miss you so much. That was beautiful. Second,
that was
really good. I agree. I don't want to bring my whole self to work. When I hear bring your whole self to work, what I really would like to hear is who you are as a person and things that are out of your control, like being queer or being trans or, being a vegetarian, things, whether or not you view these as choices or like it impacts you so greatly that you have to make lifestyle changes because of them. I would just like to be able to do that and not have those moments of my life impact my career. That's really all I'm asking for here is like, yeah, I'm trans and like I don't need to show up to work and like talk about like what happens in the bathroom or surgeries or my love life but like if me and my partner have a kid, I'm gonna put a picture of my kid on my desk. And that is really all I'm looking for is just to not be like scrutinized or insulted or demoted or not given an opportunity or treated differently because I happen to be different than the majority. And if I could just find, I guess what I'm really saying in so many words is I'm just looking for equality. And if I could find that at a job where it truly was neutral, it would be really refreshing. And I've gotten really close, and there's some really good people out there in the world. So maybe it's like Nirvana. You never get there. It's just about always trying to find it.
Yeah, just to echo off all of that, definitely, things that are out of our control, being able to bring that aspect of our lives into the workplace is definitely something that we should all be able to do. And I feel personally that for the most part, I've gotten there. And I think everyone else that's spoken already has kind of felt the same way. Of course, there are definitely certain situations we're put in. I'm not going to name any names, but I've definitely had one experience in the last year or so where I was definitely, I wouldn't say targeted, but looked at differently in regards to my standing amongst my peers as a result of it. And it wasn't a great experience. And unfortunately, nothing really got done about that at the end of the day. But, in a way, I am very much a believer in cosmic debt, and karma is the other word, I guess. At the end of the day, that's just going to come back to that person in some way, shape, or form. But to me, where I'm at currently, I definitely feel like I can bring those aspects of myself to work every day, and everyone's very accepting and open about it. And I just feel fortunate that we can do that at least.
I've gone full circle. Like when I first came out, and I was like I remember like my first job as a trans woman, which is like a very like much more emotional part of my life, and 99% of the things going through my mind on a day-to-day basis all were about my transition. Are people staring? Do they know? Do they not know? How does my voice today? Can people see my facial hair? Like that was all that was on my mind. And now I'm like, God, can I just go to work and not have to talk about myself for 5 minutes? Like, can I just like get my work done, clock out at 5 and go be with my family? So it's interesting to see that I've almost like become naive to it. And I just want to, it would be so refreshing to just be a normie and just blend in and not have to always like, have the long involved emotional conversations with everyone because you happen to be different.
Yeah, I think about that a lot from the perspective of like diversity work. Like to a large extent, I do diversity work, of which I think doing this kind of panel is a part. Not because I think that that's the most fulfilling thing in the world, but because that's how I defend my existence at a company. That's how I make sure that the company remains a place that I will be safe and comfortable at. But like, I don't really want to do that. I would much rather do, the actual engineering work. It's just sort of, we get this kind of labor foisted on us. And if we're really lucky, we get compensated for it. But it just like, really, we just want to be left alone in a lot of cases. And sometimes even that's too much to ask, apparently.
Yeah, it is interesting how, like, as a minority constituency, right, we are placed on that burden, to your point, right, that we have to take it upon ourselves to do it, when in an ideal world, people would just understand and not be bad to each other. But I will say, luckily, like, I started rethinking after Liz, you commented about what whole self actually means, and I think you actually changed my point of view quite a bit on that, because I've always taken, and this is probably as like a cis white male, right, that like whole self to me is kind of like, oh, it's a Docker container, it can run anywhere, to where you kind of think about it very generically. And it is interesting to kind of think about it from that perspective, because like I would consider I bring my whole self to work, but listening to y'all's lived experiences, it makes me realize there actually is quite a bit that I've held back. To me, the whole self was, oh yeah, like I'm gay at work and I have cats and that's cool. But there's so much more to me that I choose not to share at work. And I as a manager too, I have definitely seen a difference in how people who report up to me, or who are on my constituent level, like at entry level manager, right, how those conversations go and what people choose to share versus as an individual contributor, the kind of conversations that you have. So I think as a manager, the one thing that I try to do is to allow people, if they want to, and not trying to fish it out of them, but if they want to be available as like a, hey, what's going on? Like, what's going on in your life? Like, I want to care about the things that you care about, and the people around you and your family and your loved ones. Yeah.
I think the Docker container analogy is a fun one because as Nova and a lot of other people could tell us, that abstraction is very, very leaky. Everybody, all those containers, they still share the same kernel. It's just a different user land.
God. Remember what I was saying about how much I loved you and missed you? Has anybody else had the oh, my cousin's gay moment, but like in work, but like in the work form, where it's like either with technology or with being queer or trans or gay or whatever, like, oh yeah, I'm a trans woman. It's like, oh, have you talked to Sue in marketing? She's also gay. And it's just kind of like, well, no, I haven't. I don't really engage with much with the marketing department in my role, but I will, look out for her if I ever come across her.
What's even more awkward is someone is just like, oh, this person is also trans, and you're just, do you know them? And you're just like, you all assume we know each other. In this particular case, I do. And we dated for a little bit, like 4 or 5 years ago, but you still shouldn't assume.
And that's the worst part of it, right? Is when you actually do know that person, they're like, I was going to make a point here, but the point is lost now.
Right? Like, the stereotypes do exist for a reason, but you shouldn't assume that. That's not polite.
I agree.
Also, yeah,
totally agree.
I just texted her a few minutes ago.
I was just going to say, I know a lot of Australians, and the exact same thing happens to them. Just like everybody assumes everybody in Australia knows each other. So at the end of the day, being gay is the same as being Australian.
Wait, are y'all not on the queer gal? Like, I thought everyone was signed
not in the
up for
Kubernetes Slack? Like, really?
Is that the de facto queer gal now? Is the Kubernetes Slack?
But there also is totally a moment, like, I don't know if y'all are on like the social media or anything, but there's always that moment when you see someone and you're like, you're wearing Chucks, you got a side shave, that's a red plaid shirt, you've got your nose pierced, purple hair, are you? And they're kind of like looking back at you like, are you? And then all of a sudden, like, you realize, like, you found someone at work who you can just fast forward, like, through all the bullshit. It just gets straight to like, hey, we can talk about engineering and I don't have to explain to you how it's different for a woman to engineer than it is for a man or any of that. We can just kind of like instantly get to like level 10 communication, and it's kind of nice. I'm not going to lie.
I really like the sort of protocol negotiation that happens when like both of you, like two people want to share the fact that they're queer with each other, but not if the other person isn't actually queer. So you're just sort of, it's sort of like it's like a TLS negotiation where you're not actually allowed to say the name of any of the cipher suites you want. You're just like trying to suss out what the other person is all about.
Yeah, totally. I have had that experience also. You're like, are you? Maybe? Possibly? And you spend like a good week or so just like being the awkward turtle and be just trying to like make sure that you can actually talk to them, and then they're probably doing the same to you, like, are you? And you're like trying to find a way to signal, like, should I put up more flags? What do I do?
Do you have a Twitter profile?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, I feel like it can go both directions. Like sometimes somebody's like, "Oh, hey, you must be," and then like you talk, or maybe you like say something on Twitter or Slack, and you find out the other one's queer, trans, and it's every once in a while I'll be in a very like, I just don't want to talk about being gay. Like I just want to sit at home and drink tea and pet the cat and just be gay without having to talk about being gay. And it, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It comes and goes, and I think what I've learned over the years is, like, it's just like anything else. Like, some mornings I'll wake up and I'll be really excited about talking about being a vegan chef, and other days I'm just like, I just want some oat milk and leave me alone. I don't even want to talk about it. And yeah, it's a lifetime of learning and a lifetime of getting through it.
Absolutely. I love oat milk for what it's worth. It makes the best lattes.
It does.
It does, yeah. Props to oat milk. Yeah, oat milk is the best. My last question here for all of you wonderful people is, do you have any advice for today's technology companies on how they can cultivate a culture of inclusivity and belonging and, of course, equity for their LGBTQ team members?
The first question they have to ask themselves is if they want to do that, or if they just want all of the ally cookies that go along with doing that. Because I think most of the time it's the latter. Because if you actually want to cultivate a culture of inclusivity, it's going to take more than an ERG with a $500 budget. It's going to mean not doing business with a lot of companies that have very deep pockets. It means firing people who are good engineers but are just garbage human beings. It means not hiring as fast as you want to because that's going to lead to a monoculture. It means not speaking at every single conference, because some of those conferences are going to be filled with people who have terrible opinions. It means, for example, being supportive when your employees come to you about trying to unionize, because you basically can't extract being queer and being LGBT from economic privilege. You can't extricate it from racial justice, which means you have to be prepared to confront the fact that that just like having a couple of white queer women at your company isn't enough, and you're still going to be a monoculture. It's really, really hard work. And I have worked at a lot of companies that have just wasted everybody's time by pretending they want to do it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there on all of that. There was a running joke at a company I worked on not too long ago, about 2 years back. They always decorate the office really, really cool with rainbow everything for Pride Month, and then July 1st hits and it automatically turns into 4th of July stuff like the next day. And so to me, it was kind of a like, are you kidding me moment? But at the same time, like, okay, this is a large tech company, so yeah, they're gonna try to act in their best interest regardless of what it is. So I think for me, my advice is it goes beyond just putting up Pride stuff during Pride Month or putting on something special for Coming Out Day and stuff like that. Because for us, Pride is all the time. It's I know personally I love who I am now, and I've definitely grown to love that person a lot, and I've been fortunate enough to have people feel the same way about me, and it's not just about a single month or a single day. It's about being able to be me 365 days a year, and not being afraid of it, right? So I think the responsibility goes beyond just a season for these companies, and that's one of the biggest things that I think it's the easiest change to make across the board, because everything else you're talking about is not doing business with companies that have very deep pockets but who don't share the same opinion as you, or changing your hiring process, making everything more diverse. Those are fundamental shifts in these big technology spaces that are just going to take a lot more time. And I think, in my opinion, the easiest one is to not just make it seasonal, right? It shouldn't always be seasonal. It should be something that's ongoing for people who are part of that company.
I think beyond even to the internal, right? Like totally everybody should be doing those internal things, right? Who say they care about the queer community, but also the actions that you take towards the external community where people can see you, especially if you're a consumer brand. So like I'll toot Zillow's horn here for just a second if you'll humor me, but like Zillow during Hack Week did for our home details page that loads up a home, it now shows you the LGBTQ protections in your area and whether or not that exists or not. And so Zillow, I will say, has been one of the best companies I've worked for in terms of actually caring about diversity in more ways than, like you mentioned, right, just decorating the office or participating in the local pride parades where our offices happen to be. They actually take a lot of actions both internally but also externally to our customer facing site.
One of my favorite examples here is insurance companies that got like 100 from the Human Rights Commission because they had such good healthcare for their employees, and they had like domestic partnership benefits, and their entire business model was based around denying healthcare to trans people whenever they possibly could. Like, just stop. Don't waste everybody's time. Don't like pretend you're this paragon of inclusivity. It's like getting lectures on diversity from Palantir. It just it's
Oh God.
If your external business is not aligned with your internal values, those external forces are always going to win. They're where the money comes from. They're what your board cares about. Yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay.
Cut me off.
No, you're fine. I'm gonna just take what you were saying and run with it here. And this very well might be the most stereotypical Kris Nova thing that I will ever say on a recorded line. I feel like being gay is like open source. And I really do. I know, I'm sorry.
That is peak Kris Nova.
Peak Kris Nova. But the reason I say that is because of what everybody else was just saying, which is if you look at open source today, it is very easy to see the monetary and the fiscal reward and consequences of doing open source, right? Like if you do open source, people are going to adopt it because it's fun, it's exciting, it's cool, it's hip, it's easy to consume, it's free, all the cool kids are doing it, it's great. And from a company perspective, it's like, yeah, we want that. That's good. We should do open source. But the moment that you're doing open source for that reason, you lose track of everything, right? Like you can't do open source because you want people to think you're cool. You do open source because you genuinely understand that sharing and building that environment is better. And I look at LGBTQ in the workplace the same way. Like if you're just doing it to get the ally cookies, if you're just doing it to get the likes on Twitter, if you're just doing it so that people think you're hip, it's not going to last. And it's not authentic, and it's not going to work, and it's not real open source. And I feel deeply and passionate, if you can't tell already, that that's usually 9 times out of 10 the LGBTQ plus policy, which is like, yeah, we put an Apache 2 license on it. We have open source. You can go read it on GitHub, but we're the only contributors. And it's like, yeah, but like you followed the rules, you checked the boxes, but you're not really building an open community. And it's like, yeah, I get it. You put up the pride flag and you hired a queer person and, you hired a couple of recruiters and told them to focus on gay people. But like at the end of the day, this isn't something that's important to you. And as I've been growing in my career, one of the things I realized is a huge part of my career is like implicit decisions. A lot of times people don't even realize they're making a decision. And I think not making a decision to focus on hiring LGBTQ and making that a safe and welcoming environment is a decision to outcast them, whether you want it to be or not. And that's just the way it is. And I'm going to shut up now, but that's my open source gay rant. I'm Kris Nova. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
The other thing is like maybe in 2013, 2014, 2015, you could have gotten away with just putting your rainbow flag up and like pretending for the month of, like changing your Twitter logo to a rainbow for the month of June, and people would think you were inclusive. But we're smarter than that now. Like, we know that you're being hypocrites. We know that we don't have to respect the Palantirs and the Facebooks and the Googles of the world. The shiny, friendly branding has rubbed off. We know that was just a little bit of gilding. And so, like, if you're not going to put the effort in, just, be honest about it, because we're going to find out. It's going to waste everybody's time, and we've got more important things to do. Like, there is more important work for queer people to do now than advocate for, like, a internal, like, pride party or something like that. What we have to be doing right now is advocating for racial justice and advocating for the abolishment of the power structures that want to destroy us. I don't actually care how much budget you allocated to the specifically queer recruiter this particular quarter.
This is why, like, when everybody was all bent out of shape about Istio not going to the CNCF, I was like, this is great. This is exactly what we've been talking. Again, the open source and being queer. I have a point, I promise. Google was being honest about it. They were like, okay, we're not going to try to sugarcoat this and use an open source foundation as a marketing vehicle to sell you crap. We're just going to be real and be like, I mean, we just want to control the project. That's what we want. And we're being honest about it. And I was all about that. Like, that, being honest with yourself, that's what pride is all about. That's what being gay is all about. It's being real with yourself. And if a company can have their LGBTQ policy as authentic and as honest as that, whether or not I agree with it is a different conversation. But if they can be real about it, they're gay in my book. You're being real with me, that's honorable.
Do capitalists belong at Pride? The longest history in the discussion of the longest discussion in the history of the forum closed after 20,000 pages of strenuous debate.
Oh, jeez.
Wow. No. I'm just gonna say no. Flat out no. Honesty and authenticity are huge, and I think that people can see that the companies like Palantir and the companies like Facebook, you can put gold sparkles on it, but it doesn't make it pretty. So yeah, people are smarter than that, and I think that's really important. On that note, I would like to thank you all for being here. You're all wonderful, amazing humans, and I appreciate you very much.